Good morning. My name is Michael Povich, and we're doing the oral histories of Hancock County. Today we have the pleasure of having with us Mr. George Conley, a resident of Ellsworth. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
Wasn't too early for you, was it?
No, not a bit.
Okay, good for you. So, George, where are you presently living?
I'm presently living in North Ellsworth.
And you've lived there for how many years now?
Probably 40, 45 or more.
Yeah. And how'd you get here today? We have to bring you?
No, I came with my own car.
You still drive, don't you?
I still drive, yes. For how long, I don't know. But
right now it's fine.
right now it's fine, yes.
Well then, if I may be personal, how old are you now?
I'm 93.
And you'll be 94 this year?
Yes.
And when will you be 94?
And July 10th.
All right, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, were you born in Ellsworth?
I was born in Ellsworth, yes.
And that would have been, what year would that have been?
Been 1918.
Yeah, same year my mother was born. But you, in that day, you didn't, where did you actually live where did your parents live when you were born in Ellsworth?
They lived on the Christian Ridge Road.
And that was a different community than Ellsworth?
No, it wasn't a different community. It was just another name for the road.
Okay, but tell me about Ellsworth Falls. We hear about Ellsworth Falls now, but we don't. Ellsworth Falls now is just a location on the way to Bangor, isn't it?
Yes, it is. When I was growing up, Ellsworth Falls was a community by itself.
Really?
It had a fire station, fire truck. It had a church. It had a post office, and they were by themselves.
Had its own little business district.
Yes.
The grocery store now, is that where Sunrise Glass is?
The grocery store, when I was growing up in Ellsworth Falls, was the Sunrise Glass, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the church you're talking about, is that church still there?
Yes, it is.
And what's that church?
The Union Congregational Church.
And where else were what other businesses were there besides the grocery store?
Well, they had I guess you'd call a post office a business, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and they had a barber shop. You remember George Gould?
I don't, I'm afraid.
Well, he was the barber in Ellsworth Falls.
Where did he have his barber shop?
He had his barber shop just on the opposite side, just a ways beyond the filling station where it is now. There's a little bit of a square building. I don't know if it's still standing or not.
Okay, so if you're heading to Bangor, the Exxon station's on your left. So would that barber shop been on the same side of the street or across the street?
It would be across the street. The building, I don't think, is standing.
Okay. What was there where the filling station is now?
Well, there used to be a garage there at one time, and there used to be a grocery store.
Another grocery store?
Another grocery store, yes. The buildings have been demolished and built up several times since I was a youngster.
What about where Ellsworth Audio is now, that building, which is just on the Ellsworth side of the filling station?
Yes, that used to be a grocery store run by Salisbury, Dana Salisbury's father.
So how many different, were there more than one grocery store, or were they just one grocery store in different locations?
There were just two grocery stores, both in different locations.
Okay.
That's as best as I can tell you.
So there was enough population in the area to service two grocery stores?
Yes, right.
Okay. So you said you were born in Ellsworth in 1918. Where exactly would you have been born?
I was born on the Christian Ridge Road, just the first house, the second house above the stream. You know, you cross the bridge,
okay,
and you headed toward the Bangor Road, and,
yeah.
and the house was, I think, the second or third house on the left.
So was that a hospital or just somebody's house? Was that where
No,
you were living?
that was the family house.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you were born at the...
I was born in the house, right?
Okay. And that's not the house where your sister lives now?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. So you're born in the house where your sister Olive lives?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And it's been in the family,
Yes,
obviously, many years.
It's been in the family for a long time.
Well, how many kids in your family?
There were 7 of us. My brother and 5 sisters and myself.
You're the baby.
I'm the baby.
Okay. And your sister's still alive?
Yes, just one in the family is still alive.
And that's Olive?
Olive.
And how old is she?
She is 95.
Okay. Now, you told me a story that you said Burton, there was your brother Burton was born. He was the oldest.
Yes.
Then there were 5 girls in a row.
5 girls in a row.
So when your mother went into labor with child number 7, what was your father's name, by the way?
Father's name was Henry.
Okay, your father Henry, did he give some explicit instructions to the doctor while your mother was in labor about ready to give birth to child number 7?
Yes, yes, he did.
What did he tell the doctor?
When she was about to be delivered, he opened the door. They had a house delivery in those days.
Okay.
And he opened the door and told the doctor, if it's another girl, don't call me.
So fortunately,
I saved the day for that
you
family.
saved the day. Good
That's
for
right.
you. Good for you.
Another girl, don't call me.
When did your dad die?
He died in 1940.
Yeah. And he was, how old was he?
He was 75.
Oh, he's a young fella.
Yes, he was. He was congregational pastor. Minister.
Oh, was he?
Minister, yes.
And was he the minister of the church in the Ellsworth Falls, or?
At times he was, yes. At times. He wasn't a regular pastor of it, but he filled in when the regular pastor was not available.
Well, doing some math, your dad would have been born in 1865. And was he born in Ellsworth too? Or?
He was, no, he wasn't born in Ellsworth. I think he was born in Berwick, Maine.
Okay. And what did the preaching bring him to Ellsworth?
Either that or the going to the Bangor Seminary did.
So he went to the Bangor Seminary?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when did he marry your mother?
Oh, let's see. Probably around 1895 or
Okay.
such a date. I can't remember the exact date.
It's okay. Your mother died when?
She died in 1968.
How old was she?
She was 98.
Wow.
I
So
think.
you have some good genetics. You have some long age. What about her mother? How old was your grandmother, your mother's mother, when she died?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
There was somebody who was 101 and a half. It was,
Yes, that was my mother's father.
Oh, your mother's father. Okay.
My mother's father, right?
Oh, that's not bad. So we talked about Earl Gray's grocery store. I believe that's what you said it was. A fire station. Back in those days, growing up, the 20s, there was industry up in Ellsworth Falls too, along the river, right?
Yes, we had three mills, 3 lumber mills, and they were. One was headed toward Bangor. As you crossed the bridge in Ellsworth Falls, it was on the left-hand side.
Okay.
That has been taken down, and then the other 2 were at the bottom of infantry of
Shore Road.
Shore Road. One was right across from the other. Charles Tuergy and Whitcomb Haynes and Whitney.
Okay. Now, when you remembered them, we know that the dam down here at the Union River was built around 1906, and then there was the Graham Lake Dam, which is both dams. So your memory would be the dams were still there. Is that correct?
I didn't remember the one down street too much.
Yeah.
Because I might have been over in West Spruceville at that time when that was built. I don't know. But the ones in Ellsworth Falls, I remember quite well.
Do you remember the flood of 1923? You had only been 5 years old.
No,
Okay.
no, I don't.
Um, so back when you remember, say that would have been the 20s, you would have been late 20s, early 30s. What were the roads like in the area?
The roads were dirt roads.
Were any of them paved?
Not that I can remember.
Okay.
They were all dirt roads, and I don't know whether the roads down in Ellsworth were paved or not.
Did you get into Ellsworth much or not?
Oh, I get into Ellsworth quite often.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do people do for transportation? We're talking, say, when you from the late 20s, early 30s, for example.
Well, horses were one form of transportation,
Yeah.
horse and carriage. And at that time, automobiles just became known on the road.
What kind of automobiles do you remember?
Oh, I remember Fords.
Is there anything else besides Ford?
About the only one. We had a few Fords in our family. Catherine
Okay.
had a Ford, and my father had a Model T Ford,
What color were they?
black.
Isn't that what Henry Ford used to say? Any color you want, as long as it's black?
I think so.
Okay. So growing up, your memories of growing up on Infant Street, Christian Ridge Road, and let's say when school was out, what did you do for activities?
Well, when school was out, I came home and I had to do my homework, if there was any to do. And after that, I could go out sliding or skiing or skating or whatever I wanted to do, but I had to have my homework done.
So they cracked the whip on you.
That's right. My mother was pretty hard on that,
Well,
which was a good idea. I mean, I think I might have slacked off if I hadn't
okay.
been told to get the work done.
What was your mother's name, by the way?
Minnie
Minnie?
Whitney.
So when school was out for the summer, what did you do for activities?
Well, I helped plant the garden. They helped plant the garden. My father had a cow at one time, and I learned to milk the cow and helped him around the house. I guess it's just about what I did was say a farmhand.
Well, it struck me a bit like Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, that if you got a chance to get out of work, you'd find a wife. Is that an unfair statement?
No, not an unfair statement.
You enjoyed growing up.
I think so, yes.
This garden of yours how big was it? Was it to help you feed the family during the winters?
More or less, yes. It wouldn't feed us through all of the winter, but
Yeah.
it would help out.
What kind of crops did you grow?
Oh, we had potatoes, corn, beets, cucumbers, squash. My father was the one that instigated it, and he asked me to help him. So that's what I did.
Now, there were 7 kids. So you were the youngest. Burton was the oldest. What was the age difference between number 1 and number 7?
About 20 some years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, who would have been your closest? Who you close with? Who was the kids closest to you in age?
Well, Olive was the closest.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was 2 years older than I was, and she was the closest. Yeah.
There must have been a time. Was there always? 70 of the 20 years apart. So when you were born in 1918, Burton would have been say 20. Did everybody live at home at that time, or how many were out of the house?
No, Burton was out of the house
Yeah.
at that time, and as I had my sisters, why they were living in the house part of the time, but most of the time they were at school.
Okay.
So away from school, away from Ellsworth.
I see. Did you kids ever fight?
No, I don't, not that I know of.
Okay. Did you ever get into trouble?
I suppose I have, but I can't recall a particular
Are
incident.
you taking the Fifth Amendment?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, well,
More or less.
I won't press that point. I'll move on. Where'd you go to elementary school?
I went to, as far as I know, I went to the Ellsworth Falls School.
And that's not there anymore, is it?
No, that burned several years ago, and it shut down before that,
Yeah.
and it was a storage, but I don't know how it caught fire.
Where's the location? Where would if for those of you, if those of the people drive through Ellsworth Falls, where would it be? Where would it have been located?
It would have been behind the takeout.
Okay, where Woodland Studios is, the
Yes,
T-shirt place.
Yes, that's right.
You just passed the family market.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you went to high school.
Uh-huh.
And you went to what high school?
Went to Ellsworth High School.
And where was the high school then?
That was the Bryant Moore School.
Okay.
It hasn't changed. That is the high school itself, but the name has changed to different buildings.
Now, as you told me before, when you got through with school, you better get your homework done.
Yes.
And what was your favorite subject? What was your unfavorite subject?
I think history was my favorite subject,
Yeah.
and probably English was my least favorite subject.
Did it have to do with the teachers or just with your interest?
Just with my interest.
What kind of history? What area of history do you like the most, or did you like?
Oh, I liked American history.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had, remember Howard Higgins?
Yes. Yeah.
He was my history teacher.
Oh, was he?
Yes, he was.
Wow. Yeah. Yes, I remember Howard. You did you take part in any formal school activities when you were going to high school?
Not too many, no. I was on the library staff for a while,
Yeah.
and I don't know that I took any activities at all outside of that. When school was done, I had to go home and get the wood in and do my homework. So I didn't have too much time to linger on down to the high school.
Now, from where you lived, was that bridge across the river, the one that goes from Infant Street to South Street, the one where you just see remnants of it now? Remember the little bridge there?
Oh, yes, right. Now, that bridge was removed back in the 1940s.
But it was there when you were going to high school?
Yes, it was.
Is that how you went to school?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So you walk from your house to Infant Street?
Down the Shore Road.
Okay.
Oh, we call it the Shore Road. Then it's I don't know what it's called now. They change the name so often that.
Well, I think it's still Shore Road.
So okay, yeah.
Well, we'll call it Shore Road.
And that was the quickest way to get to the high school. Although I did walk to Ellsworth Falls and headed down toward high school, and 9 out of 10 times I got a ride with someone.
Okay. You obviously, not like kids today, didn't have your own car.
No, I did not.
You didn't even have your own horse and buggy, did you?
All I had was a bicycle,
Okay.
and I took that to school sometimes.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
So, how were your grades? What kind of student were you?
Oh, I passed,
Okay.
but I just, I don't know. I don't think I made the honor roll, but I passed comfortably.
Did you like school?
It was okay. I liked it. I liked it. I wasn't afraid to go or didn't want to go.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. It's may not have been your top 10 of activities.
That's right.
But you didn't do too badly. So you graduated when? When did you graduate from high school?
1937.
And after high school, what did you do?
1 year after high school, I stayed home, helped around the farm, and didn't do too much activity, but I did stay home. I didn't have any intention of going beyond high school until next year.
And why was that?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any particular reason. I just wasn't interested. I took a general course in high school, and that didn't get you into college. So,
Well, we know that. So, but when you graduated, what did you think at the time you graduated, during that year after graduating in 1937, in your mind, what did you think your life's journey was going to be like?
to tell the truth, I didn't think anything of it.
You just enjoyed being at home
I
and
just
working?
enjoyed being at home and not having to get up every morning and go to school and all that.
And you were all of probably 19 years old.
Yes, I was 19,
Yeah.
18 when I graduated, yeah.
Well, then something happened after the year. What it looks like you took a little detour. What happened?
Well, my sister wanted me to go on to college.
Now, Olive, she's the...
No, she wasn't the one. It was Catherine.
Oh, Catherine. Now, Catherine died just a few years ago, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. But she wanted me to go on to college, and
Was she living at home, too, at that time?
she was teaching in Bath.
Oh, okay.
In Bath, yeah. But I didn't have good enough ranks to get into college.
Okay.
So, said, well, don't you go to prep school? I says, well, okay, what school shall I go to? She says, go to Higgins Classical Institute, about 24 miles beyond Bangor.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so I got a scholarship, not because I was smart, but because I was the only one that applied for it.
Oh, well, there's a lesson. Make sure there's nobody else interested.
That's right.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you even think of saying to your sister Catherine, no, I don't want to go to school? Did that ever cross your mind?
I suppose it did, but it didn't cross it enough to put my foot down and say, no, I'm not going.
Would it done you any good?
I don't think so.
She's a pretty strong personality, wasn't she?
She was.
So you got this. How much was the scholarship back then? This only scholarship you applied to?
About $100.
And what did that cover? Everything?
Yeah. Well, yes, it covered my board and room and so forth. I boarded right up to Higgins, up to Charleston.
Well, there's not much difference between that and today, where $50,000 will get you into college, room and board.
No, I suppose that was about equitable to.
So you went there for 2 years.
I did, yeah.
And did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did. Lived in a dormitory up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And obviously you had your high school diploma.
Yes.
So after 2 years at Higgins, what happened? What happened after 2 years at Higgins Classical?
I applied to Colby for admission, and I was accepted.
Well, good for you. But back then, that would have been about 1940, 41, or it would have been... well, you took a year off, so that...
It was let's see.
Probably 1940, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Then you finished.
right around that time.
So that's when you entered your first year at Colby in 1940.
40? Yes, I was in the class of 41.
Okay, well, so you never got a college degree, did you?
No,
And you only went 1 year to college.
that's right.
How come?
Well, after 1 year of college, I was drafted in the Army.
It was a little thing like World War II coming on.
That's right, yeah.
And that interfered with a lot of people's plans.
Well, I know it.
So you got drafted, but then after you got drafted, you went and did something. What'd you do?
Well, you mean during the war, or?
No. After you got drafted, but then what did you do after you get your draft notice?
Well, I was in Colby when I got my draft notice.
Yeah.
So I could stay there until the school year ended,
Okay.
and then I was drafted. And then I enlisted. Is that
That's what I mean. That's right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, I thought that there might be war at Pearl Harbor or World War, and I said, well, I might as well go in for 3 years.
When you got drafted, this was in 1941, but it was before Pearl Harbor, which was in December.
Yes,
Okay.
it was.
So you joined the Army. You enlisted for 3 years, but as the Army works, you stayed more than 3 years.
As the war wore on, yes,
Yeah.
I stayed more than 3 years.
So how many years were you in the Army?
About a little over 4 years.
And what rank were you?
PFC.
And what was your...
Well, I was in Coast Artillery outfit. I was in a Searchlight Battalion outfit.
The what?
Searchlight.
Searchlight, okay.
And as the war progressed, the casualties became more, so they wanted infantrymen. So they transferred me into the infantry, and I took advanced infantry training in a camp in Georgia.
So you spent time, where did you, during the 4 years you were in the Army, where were the places you were stationed?
Oh man, well, I don't know if I can give all of them, but they
No,
were
but-
up and down the East Coast,
Yeah.
in Virginia and Georgia, Florida, Carolinas,
You were in Puerto Rico too.
and
weren't
I
you?
was in Puerto Rico, yes, for 18 months.
Did you eventually go to Europe?
I came back from Puerto Rico, and I was in the States for 18 months, and I took my my advanced infantry training during that time. So when the casualties became quite heavy, why they just put me in an outfit that was going to Europe. I didn't go with any outfit. I went over as a replacement.
And what division or regiment did you get assigned
I was in
to?
the 9th Infantry Division.
And where were you stationed when you got to Europe?
I joined the 9th in Belgium, and from there on, we advanced into Germany.
Were you there before or after the Battle of the Bulge?
I was there after the Battle of the Bulge, right?
Were you in combat?
More or less, yes.
And what does more or less mean?
It means that I wasn't up on the front lines being shot at,
Okay.
but it means that I was with an outfit that marched over Germany to get in contact with the enemy.
So you were in the rear, but you were still an infantryman.
Yes.
But they never had need to put you in the front line.
No.
You got honorably discharged,
Yes.
and that was when?
That was in October 1945.
Came back to Ellsworth.
Come back to Ellsworth.
And where'd you work?
I got a job in the A&P food store.
And where was that in Ellsworth?
That is where I think it was where John Edwards is now.
Yep.
I worked there for a year, and then I changed over to the First National store.
Ooh, you went to the competition.
I did.
And where was the First National Store back then?
Right where the Riverside Cafe is.
And what did you do for work there?
Oh, I was just a clerk, stocking shelves, unloading trucks.
And you worked there for how many years?
Oh, I worked there for probably 15, 18 years.
But then you still didn't retire, did you?
No, I didn't.
What did you then do?
After that, I took another job. I worked for H.C. Austin Furniture
That was on Main Street, which is now,
on Main
I think,
Street, where
it
the
is-
antique place is now.
And you worked there for how many years?
Oh, I worked there for probably 10 or 12, or maybe 14.
Okay. And what did you do for H.C. Austin?
Well, I was a clerk in the store. I unloaded the furniture trucks, waited on customers, cut window shades, anything they wanted me to do and I could do it, why, I did.
Now you got married relatively late in life, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You got married one time, right?
One time.
And who was this lovely lady you married?
Ella Nason.
And unfortunately, Ella passed away,
Passed away.
last November, didn't she?
Yes, she did, yeah.
And Ella, she had a job that she worked at for more than 5 or 10 minutes, didn't she?
She did. She worked in the courthouse for 41 years in the Registry of Deeds.
Yes, I knew her well.
I
I knew her well. She was a wonderful
probably knew her
lady.
before I knew you.
That's true. I only knew you, seeing you hang around with that crowd at Dunkin' Donuts. That's where I connected the dots.
Okay.
How did you meet Ella?
In the, I met her when she and her mother shopped in the First National Store. Got to talking to her when I was checking her out. And,
Yeah.
And she lived. No, she lived about 4 miles from me.
Did you know her before then?
No, I didn't. Just got to talking and things developed, a date and so forth.
You got married when?
I got married in 1964.
And did you have children?
I had a stepdaughter,
Okay.
and then I had a biological daughter,
Okay.
Margaret. She lives in Washington State.
And the stepdaughter was Ella's.
Yes, right.
Well, you've lived in Ellsworth. When you look back at Ellsworth, and you have a great memory, excuse me, what are the biggest changes you've seen with the town?
Oh, the biggest change I think I've seen has been the development on High Street. Now, a lot of changes on Main Street too. People operate a store and then they sell it, and someone comes in and puts a different name on it.
Right.
And also the parking on Main Street, it was parallel. It was angle when I was growing up. They
Well,
changed.
you were old enough to remember the Ellsworth fire of '33, weren't you?
I was going to first year in high school when that burned.
And you
I
remember seeing the fire, going down and seeing it?
I didn't go down that night, but I went down the next day, but I could see it from my home where I lived. Yeah, that was quite a thing. The only thing I remember about that is we got a week off from school.
You liked that?
Yes,
Okay.
not that it mattered much.
Well, I asked you a personal question about my own family. Did you ever go to Mike's Country Store
Old land, yes.
when you were a kid?
Not when I was a child or
High school student.
a high school student.
Yeah.
No. Went to
Yeah.
him afterward. I got out of high school and when I was working in Ellsworth.
Oh, okay. I was talking about the kids who used to get the
I went-
penny candy.
I went down that long.
I've got a few more questions to ask you. How do you spend your days today, at this time? How do you spend what do you do these days? You obviously have all your marbles,
What do I do these days
yeah,
now?
what do you do for activities?
Uh,
I know you live by yourself. and-
live by myself. My daughter comes from visit me quite often, and she lives with me instead of staying down to Olives.
Oh, okay.
And in the morning, I get up and eat my breakfast and get ready to go down to DD.
DD.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And after that, I go grocery shopping if I have to buy anything. And then I go up to Olives and call on her. And after that, I go home and watch TV. I have quite a few channels that I watch.
What do you watch? What do
I
you
watch
enjoy?
the military history.
Yes, I know that one.
And then I have watched 2, 5, and 7, and 12, and 22, and I have a variety.
You got cable or dish?
Dish,
Okay,
yeah.
good for you. And always ask this question. You're 93 years old. You drive. You read. You watch television. What is the lessons you can give us on living a good, long, healthy, productive, fulfilled life?
Well, I can tell you what I do, but it may not be what you would want to do.
Okay.
I don't smoke or I don't drink,
Okay.
and I got good genes, and I eat 3 good meals a day. At least I try to. What little cooking I do,
Yeah.
and go to church most every Sunday. And
Go to church up to Ellsworth Falls?
yes, yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you one last question. Now, this may be the most important question, and this is like the quiz. You better get this lesson correct. 'Cause I wrote it down here. All right, are you ready for this one?
Yes.
What is your favorite dish?
You mean food?
Yes.
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Oh, what happened to macaroni and cheese?
Well, I knew I said that, but I couldn't think of it at this time.
Okay, but now you're saying spaghetti and meatballs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
George, thank you so much for joining us, and that's the end of our little chat with George Conley, 93 years old. So,